Okay, so full disclosure, this video is chock full of spoilers for both the anime and live-action Cowboy Bebop. If you haven't seen the anime, check it out. It's one of the best dang animated series of all time. It's my personal favorite, in fact, which makes it all the more frustrating that, man, I was not a big fan of this here Netflix production. All you Death Note fans out there, I feel your pain. So anyway, let's take a dive into all the big changes made to Cowboy Bebop 2021. 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Sounds so awful when I say it. Let's do the anime one.
3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Alright, so let's start with one of the more unfortunate changes, the character of Faye Valentine.
What?
I don't want to get too long-winded on this one, but basically the live-action version is an oversimplified take on the character minus a whole lot of nuance. A big part of this is down to trying to modernize her, and this is something that's kind of a fatal flaw for the whole series. The original is a masterful use of tropes, most of them based in the Western and Film Noir genres. One of those is the femme fatale, of which Bebop sports plenty, but Faye is easily the most important.
You know, me being such a prize and all that.
She's deadly, confident in the face of her enemies, and in full control of her sexuality as a tool. But she's also subversive in a lot of ways. She's lazy, complains all the time, and she's internally in conflict with that aforementioned sexuality. The reality is that she's lost in a time she doesn't belong, and must always make up for that. Some of this is present in the new show. She's still time displaced, although we don't dig into too many specifics, presumably most of which are being saved for season 2. And a lot of the backstory and her search for her identity are oversimplified. Which is a curious decision, since these episodes have more time than the show they're based on.
Oh God, men are such babies.
One of the bigger changes here is the introduction of her mother, Whitney, who is a gender-swapped version of this douche canoe, also named Whitney, who similarly cons Faye into taking on a ton of debt, in collaboration with the doctor who woke her up, which of course corresponds really well with her trust issues and use of sexuality going forward.
I wanted to start all over. Start from scratch.
By conning women out of their money.
It's also a great critique of healthcare providers, which is basically all lost in this version. And actually, the whole series is kind of a takedown of capitalism, and I'm already getting long-winded. Short and sweet, she's just kind of a loud-mouthed queer girl in this version, which is fine. Honestly, I like the idea of her being more comfortable in the arms of a woman, and I think her outfit works well enough, but man, without those additional layers of complexity, she's just nowhere near the Faye Valentine fans hold so dear.
Be free!
But hey, at least Faye is debatably still a fun character and still follows a rough approximation of her anime storyline. Vicious and Julia, on the other hand, oh boy, what a series of decisions that were made. In the anime, these two are borderline non-entities as far as characterization goes. While Faye is a subversion of tropes, Vicious and Julia are just, well, tropes. They're symbols of Spike's past, a murderous ex-partner with a cruel streak and a beautiful blonde femme fatale that they both loved, who will eventually lead to the deaths of all three. The show as a whole is built on ambiguity, tragedy, and the characters' inability to escape their own pasts, and Spike's past is represented by these two visually exciting but still pretty dull characters. Within the live-action series, they are given so much screen time. Time that could have been used to contend with our main trio's nihilistic existence or to expand on the episodic stories that made up the best parts of the show. Julia is less mysterious and transformed into a villain, while Vicious is, the spoiled son of one of the elders. Lame.
Mushy mushy.
There's other little changes here, like Mao being ginger-swapped and given a new plot line, but the big thing is, you just get a lot of Vicious and Julia.
Did you have a good day? Mine was good.
This whole subplot, it feels like an attempt to avoid ambiguity, and that's just not Cowboy Bebop.
Look at this mess.
Jet Black, meanwhile, is misunderstood in a way that might not be as drastic as Faye or these other two lost CW characters, but still jumped out at me while watching the new show. He's another loner based in tropes, and he has an old flame who left him with nothing more than a broken watch, and he has an old traitorous partner who he discovers is responsible for the betrayal, which led to him losing his job in the ISSP. Oh, and also his arm. Like the rest of the crew, he's by himself and needs the relationships he forms on the Bebop. In the live-action version, he's got a family? I mean, sure, he's divorced and all that, but dude has a daughter to care for. That's a pretty big difference. Now, to be fair to the new show here, this does appear to be leading to a similar arc thanks to Vicious kidnapping his daughter, and thereby ruining the relationship he'd built up with his ex-wife during the first season.
Daddy, I want to go home.
Come here.
With the crew split up at the end, chances are the showrunners are looking to build up the rapport and dependency shown in the original series.
Look, do I really look like I have money?
Then there's Spike, Fearless, who is easily the least tampered with character, although even he doesn't come out unscathed. I actually really like the casting here. It's unconventional. John Cho is, on paper, way too old to play Spike, but I found myself wanting more and more scenes featuring him. Of course, the monkey's paw situation that I then found myself in was an endlessly tiring backstory episode, but that's a rant for another day. Also, look, I just gotta say it. Fearless is a stupid name and an unnecessary attempt at explaining why this stock femme anime character is named Vicious. Anyway, Spike in the anime, on the surface at least, is, like Faye, a pretty lazy dude with an apathetic outlook on life. His life in particular. Dude is always taking on missions that could easily lead to his death and showing disinterest in pretty much anything outside of food and bounties. While Faye and Jed are far more into self-preservation, Spike's so disconnected that he treats everything with a laissez-faire attitude. The Netflix version doesn't feel quite as hopeless as the anime, and I think that's less to do with Cho's characterization, so much as that aforementioned backstory with Vicious and Julia. It butts into the plot so often that we get very little of him without that baggage.
And it doesn't work.
Hopefully, now that he's been shot out a window by the woman he loved, Spike will be a little more nihilistic in that theoretical Season 2.
Whatever happens, happens.
And I've kind of already explained this by pointing out the Vicious and Julia flaw, but it's gotta be said, this is a far more serialized version of Bebop. I can't overstate how important the episodic nature of the original show really is. While plot beats are dropped here and there, leading to a handful of mythology episodes, a huge chunk of the anime is dedicated to our cowboys tracking down bounties in between quiet ruminations on life and artsy crap like that our showrunners apparently just didn't have time for. There are tons of characters and stories that wind up feeling pretty shafted because they're mixed with long scenes of other characters, well, mostly just Vicious and Julia, going through their own drama and scrapping the original's less is more approach. Those stories are also mostly integrated into the backstory, which leads me to all of them wonderful, iconic bounties. Oh man. This is where I really just lost my mind. Almost every storyline has to be tied to the main narrative or simplified to make room for it. This immediately shrinks the scope of the show. Right from the jump, the Red Eye episode, the same story that opened the anime, is now directly linked to Vicious operating behind the backs of the Elders. The Space Warriors, far less threatening here, no longer use a virus to regress human evolution, and instead, turn people into trees? Okay. While the crew is after these environmentalist nut jobs, we get so much Vicious and Julia and essentially no direct interaction with Maria Murdoch. Mad Pierrot is probably the best realization of any of the bounties. He's creepy, seemingly unstoppable, and his breakdown after getting stabbed feels ripped straight from the anime. But of course, he has to be sent by Vicious to kill Spike, and that whole awesome battle is intercut with Vicious taking out the Elders, who all wear masks of Japanese faces for, some reason. Gotta get that John Noble cameo, I guess. Like, guys, just give me my damn Kill a Clown episode. Jeez. Hakeem, what is even going on here? He's a white guy with a face changer to make him look like his anime version so that he can steal dogs, not to sell them, but to kill them as revenge for what a bunch of rich people did back on Earth. What? Like, I get it. In the anime, he got surgery to appear more, Kareem Abdul-Jabbarish, but the use of outlandish holographic technology just seems so... Oh my god, this is just set up for Vicious killing the Elders. God! Circling back around to our trio of bounty hunters, it's just gotta be said, They get real chummy real fast. In the anime, there's a lot of nuance to their relationships. We never can quite tell what the deal is with Spike and Faye. Do they love each other, hate each other? It's all up to interpretation, but they certainly have some sort of feelings, at least until Spike goes to leave for his final confrontation with Vicious, and even then we never really get anything final, although it does seem like there is love there. Who knows? In the Netflix version, they are already bonding over war wounds, and Faye and Jet share a hug before she runs off to investigate her past. They're best buds after very little conflict, and basically just trade harmless jabs at the worst of times. This is not a terribly interesting way of advancing their arcs, and even with the split at the end, all we can really look forward to is them, I guess, finding their way back to this level of familial rapport? Maybe? I don't know, it just seems like a non-starter, especially when the beauty of the anime is that they're just kind of dicks to each other the whole time. And you know, for a show ostensibly about space cowboys, there's not a whole lot of space action. Like, sure, they spend a lot of time on the ship, and there's plenty of traipsing back and forth between planets, but we don't get much in the way of space-based fight sequences, quiet moments between the cast as the Bebop floats through space, or even a very good explanation of the astral gates. Most of our action takes place in world-bound sets and retro-styled environments that allow the production more freedom with the old budget sheets, which is all well and good, but I gotta ask, why make a thing if you can't afford to do it in the first place?
He's a cheap bastard.
And yeah, those are the big changes, but I could go on and on. One thing that's not even a change that I should probably mention, Ed. I'm not sure how you make that character so literal and yet so divisive, but here we are. Anime, man. It's tough to get right, so why do we even try? See you, Space Cowboy.